What was it like to grow up in America as a Japanese person?
So in Iowa, there's not a lot of diversity. It's
At that time, I was like, wait, I thought I was Japanese this whole time because I thought I was Japanese ever since I was in Hawaii.
Decided that I wanted to move here just to kind of learn about that part of my culture. And I also wanted to be able to speak to my grandparents in Japanese.
Hey guys, how you doing? I'm Takashi from Japan. Today, I'm going to interview Japanese people raised in America. Previously, I made a video about this topic. What's it like being foreigner raised in Japan? So ethnically not Japanese, but raised in Japan. So this time, I interviewed Japanese Americans, which are born and raised in America, but 100% Japanese by blood. And also, I interviewed someone who was born in Japan but raised in America. Okay, let's find out today. On my channel, I interview Japanese people and foreigners in Japan, so it's the best channel for anyone who wants to come to Japan without traveling or living. And you can also learn Japanese here. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to my channel. And on my Instagram, I show my daily life in Tokyo and share information about Japan. Please follow it too. Okay, let's get started. Thank you for your help.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Where you from? Can you introduce your background?
So I'm Tanner. I am born and raised in Hawaii. So I'm a Japanese descendant, born and raised in the U.S. And I work. I moved to Tokyo. I work right now, and here in Tokyo.
So you're Japanese American.
Yeah. Some people think they're like half Caucasian, but they're like 100% Japanese, raised in the U.S.
When you talk to people in Japan, Japanese people, they think you are like Japanese raised in Japan, or they can tell.
Oh yeah, so I lost my wallet before, and then I had to go to the police office to like write that form, right?
Yeah.
And I cannot write kanji. I cannot read and write kanji. I was born and raised in Hawaii. I didn't go to Japanese school, so I had a hard time writing my name and address. And the police were like looking at me confused. They're like, "Why are you writing it so slow?" And then after I explained to them I'm American, they're like, "Oh my God, you're I see. They understood." When they speak like really polite Japanese, like the Keigo's like polite Japanese, I don't know what they're saying most of the time. So I just say hi, okay, hi. And hopefully that works. And most of the time it works. But it's kind of embarrassing because if you look Japanese, but if you can't speak or understand Japanese, it made me feel a little bit dumb, and it kind of made me motivated to study Japanese more. If you obviously don't look Japanese, then like they're gonna understand even if you don't speak Japanese. But I feel like Japanese-ish face, like if you don't understand what they're saying, they give you that look. I have to like throw away my pride and just explain to them saying, sorry, I'm American, I cannot, I sometimes please speak to me in easy Japanese. And they're like, okay, yeah.
But you speak Japanese, right? We before interview we talked in Japanese, like, and I assume your Japanese level like it's like a native. Like I didn't find any like like difference.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And how did you learn? Like your family or your friends or?
I didn't go to Japanese school. The only time I actually practiced Japanese was at home where I had to speak with my mom.
Oh.
But in college, this is weird. So I went to school in Oregon, but I hung out with mostly Japanese exchange students.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That's the first time I got to talk to native Japanese people a lot. So then I talked to them in Japanese. That's when I learned all like the slang, the bad words, and all that, like culture differences. They taught me a lot. So I talked to them for like 2 years. I still talk to them now, which is pretty cool. So it's weird. I actually learned Japanese more when I was in Oregon, which is
How did you find like differences between you and them, or like in terms of like personality or like the way of thinking or anything else?
Okay, so I realized that I'm not Japanese to people in Japan when I went to Oregon, because I told the exchange students I'm Japanese, but they were kind of confused because I'm not like native Japanese, and my vibe, I guess, Frinky is like not Japanese. So they were kind of like questioning me, but at that time I was like, wait, I thought I was Japanese this whole time because I thought I was Japanese ever since I was in Hawaii. But then when I told Japanese people I'm Japanese, they were like, みたいな. Yeah, well, they were
Yeah.
So then I was like, wait, what am I, right? So now when I talk to Japanese people, I can't say that I'm Japanese because I might not look super Japanese, I might not be native Japanese. So I just tell them I'm Japanese American, I'm a Japanese descendant born and raised in Hawaii. Then they understand. Yeah.
How about the personality?
Oh, yeah.
Like you're more like Japanese or American type?
I guess, yeah. I've always been introverted since I was little. So I guess, like, being in Japan, I had no problem adjusting to that. Like, I'm quiet and shy at first, anyways. I've always been shy. When I talk to people, I've always get nervous.
Is there any like American type of your personality?
Oh, okay. Well, I like to express my opinions at certain points. Like when I talk to friends and stuff, when they have like discussions and stuff, I try to say my opinion as well. I'm not like, like in Japan, I heard that they're not used to
Yeah.
expressing their opinions.
That's
but
true, yeah.
but for me, I think I can express my opinion a bit more compared to I think another different thing is that I'm more open-minded now because I was in Hawaii, then I experienced Japanese culture. Then I went to the U.S. too, the mainland U.S. And when I listen to other people talking, like with different perspectives, I try to make sure like I listen with an open mind.
Okay, you want to say something else about like your background, your personality, or anything else related to Japanese American?
If you're Japanese American, if you come to Japan, people from Japan might not think you're like Japanese, so that's kind of like a heads up. Because being Japan in America and being Japan in Japanese is different. I feel like anyone who's Japanese in America is like Japanese, but in Japan you have to kind of like look Japanese, have Japanese vibes, and be a native Japanese speaker to be viewed as a Japanese in Japan. So it's kind of like a heads up. I hope this video helped. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Can you say hello in Japanese? Yeah.
こんにちは。ハワイで生まれ育ったタナって言います。今は日本で社会人してます。どうぞよろしくお願いします。
お願いします。
よろしくお願いします。
Okay, thank you for your time today. Can you introduce your background first?
Yes, my name is Sayaka. I was born in Japan, but when I was 4, I moved to America. I was in Iowa and New York for altogether 13 years. And then I came back to Japan for college, and I've been here ever since.
So you're from Japan, so you're not like half Japanese or Japanese American.
No, I'm full Japanese, but in Japanese, I think you would consider me as kikokushijo, which means, I guess, translates to returnee in English.
How often did you visit?
Every year, actually, for
year.
summer vacation and stuff, we would come back.
What was it like to grow up in America as a full Japanese person? Like, what was it like? Your friends, the school, or like did you go like international school or like just normal American school?
So in Iowa, there's not a lot of diversity. It's right in the middle of America. So there wasn't any Japanese school or international school, so I went to a local school. I can't speak for everyone, but for me, I felt like I was very stereotyped. People talk about my skin, my eyes. They would say like Japanese people or Asian people have thin eyes. Why don't you have thin eyes? Or something like that, which would bother me and make me feel self-conscious a little bit. But then when I would come back to Japan, I didn't feel like I was fully Japanese. People would say that I talk differently or I dress differently. And so I felt like I didn't really belong anywhere when I was growing up. But, as I grew older, I realized that being different and being unique is actually a good thing. And so I was able to embrace it and be more confident. But I wish I was able to embrace it and be confident when I was younger because I really struggled with my identity growing up.
When you are 18, you came back to Japan. What was the like biggest reason? I know like you're from Japan, but you could choose, staying in America, right? So like, what was the reason?
I think the biggest reason was because I wanted to see if I was more comfortable in Japan. And I'm glad I came to Japan because my college is a very diverse college. And I was able to meet a lot of people like myself that grew up abroad, grew up in Japan, but went to an international school. And so I was able to meet with a lot of people that have the same values as I do. And I think that's where I built my confidence. And that's why I'm still here. And that's why, I am the person that I am today.
So when you came back to Japan, how was the language? How was the Japanese? It was no problem or like was there any difficulty?
Yes, that's what I struggle with even right now Because I do look Japanese, my name is super Japanese, so people assume that I speak and understand Japanese 100%. But even at my workplace right now, sometimes I only understand 60 to 70% of what people are saying. It was very difficult to converse with people in Japan because obviously talking to your parents is much different than talking to your peers. And so, yeah, I struggle with Japanese every day.
Okay, so about your background, growing up in America as a Japanese person, you want to say something else?
Maybe I can talk about like the merits of being
Oh,
an
yeah, yeah.
international person in Japan. I think one of the biggest merits of being international in Japan is being able to speak English. It becomes very important to speak Japanese, and I think a lot of Japanese people right now can't speak English fluently and even comprehend it. I think compared to other developed countries, Japan is much, much behind.
Okay, thank you so much. Can you introduce yourself in Japanese?
高橋さやかです。よろしくお願いします。
これからも当分はずっと東京にいる日本に。
東京にいます、これからも。はい。
はい、ありがとうございます。
ありがとうございます。
Before we continue interview, this video is sponsored by ExpressVPN. You might not know this, but when you use public Wi-Fi in coffee shop or shopping, anyone connected to the same Wi-Fi network can steal personal information like your account login, credit card, or bank details. So I use ExpressVPN to stay safe, no matter where I access the internet from. ExpressVPN encourages on my 100% my traffic so that no one can steal my personal information. Another cool thing ExpressVPN lets me do is watch more shows and movies on streaming service such as Netflix or BBC iPlayer. Since I live in Japan, there are countless foreign movies that Netflix doesn't have in Japan, but they do in other countries. With ExpressVPN, I can change my online location. They have 94 countries to choose from, so I can just tap one button within seconds. It looks like I'm in the country. This is a big contribution to how I learned English, even though I've rarely been abroad. I often use ExpressVPN to change my location to the US or UK to watch English movies to learn the language. But you can also do the same and watch Japanese contents by using ExpressVPN in your countries. For example, Spy Family is really popular in Japan lately. All my friends watch it. You can watch just by changing your location to Japan on the app and refreshing the page. This is the best and easiest way to learn a language. So if you want to stay safe on internet, practice a new language, or get thousands of new shows for the same Netflix on subscription price, use my link expressvpn.com/takashi or click in the description box in the below and you can get 3 extra months free. Okay, let's get back to interview. Thank you for your time. Can you introduce your background first?
Hi, my name is Shelby. I'm from California and I'm Japanese American, so I was raised in California my whole life.
Okay, I want to ask you about your experiences. Now you live in Japan. Oh, when did you come to Japan?
I came here about 3 months ago.
3 months ago.
Yeah.
Okay, so before, have you visited Japan?
I've been to Japan 3 times. Once when I was a kid with my family for 2 weeks, once in college for 2 weeks, and then once in 2019 for 1 week. So
Okay.
just a little bit.
As a tourist?
Yes. Well, the first 2 times were as tourists, and then the last time was for a government program between Japan and America for Japanese Americans to learn about Japan-US relations. Yeah. My mom's dad moved from Japan to the US. My mom's grandmother moved from Japan to the US. So it's kind of different depending on the grandparent. And then my dad's parents, I think my dad's grandparents moved to the US from Japan.
Your whole family in the US. Your parents, did they speak Japanese?
My mom can speak Japanese because she majored in it in college, but she didn't grow up speaking it. And my dad can speak it a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
While you growing up in US, have you had any opportunity to speak Japanese?
No.
No.
No. Unless I spoke it with my grandparents or my parents, but they all speak in English. So I didn't know very many Japanese people, and if I did know Japanese people, usually they couldn't speak Japanese. And where I'm from, there's a lot of Asian Americans, like it's very diverse, but there aren't a lot of Japanese Americans. So I almost never had the chance to speak it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have any Japanese American friends there?
I have a couple friends that are half Japanese.
Okay.
And I have a few that are Japanese American. Yeah.
in terms of personality, you're very American?
Yes.
American? Okay.
Yes.
So when you talk to Japanese people like raised in Japan, so many differences?
Yeah, I definitely can feel a difference, especially just in everyday life. Like, I think in America, people are very open to talking to random strangers. Like, in America, I'll randomly compliment people, or people will compliment each other. But I think if you randomly compliment someone in Japan, I don't know, people don't really do that here,
No,
right?
no, yeah, no,
Yeah.
no.
So that's been different. Just like the small interactions that you do in America, you don't really do in Japan.
This time you came to Japan for living. What was the reason?
I've always wanted, it's like a life goal of mine to be able to speak Japanese fluently.
Okay.
And my dad told me, the only way you're going to learn fluently is if you move there. So then I was like, okay, I'll move there. So yeah, I decided to move here. And after a year of studying Japanese, I want to try and pass the N2 JLPT. And then once I pass that, I want to try and work here, find a job here.
Japanese Americans in America, in the US, I don't know, like, I'm not sure, but many people were born and raised in America, but still, stay there and live there. What are the difference? You and then other Japanese American who, ended up living in the US their entire life.
I think when I was younger, I was not very in touch with my Japanese culture. I was very Americanized and I didn't really care about that part of my life. But then when I got to high school and college, I started getting interested in Japanese culture and the language too. And so once I started learning the language, I realized how important culture can be. And so decided that I wanted to move here just to kind of learn about that part of my culture. And I also wanted to be able to speak to my grandparents in Japanese. So I decided to come here because of that.
Tell me about pros and cons of living in Japan as a Japanese person by blood, born and raised in US, Japanese American.
The pros are that I blend in to society
Oh yeah.
because I look Japanese. So, because I know a lot of my foreigner friends get stared at a lot, but I don't get stared at. A con is that I don't really get the foreigner card. Like, if I do something wrong, they expect me, like, oh, you're Japanese, you should know that,
Is there anything that you want to share, people? Nikkei people in the world, like Japanese, Brazilians, or like anyone who want to come to Japan,
Yeah.
like you.
Especially when we're younger, I think a lot of Nikkei people kind of don't feel in touch with their Japanese side, at least from my experience. If you ever have like any interest in, the Japanese side of you, I think coming to Japan is a really good way to kind of explore that and learn more about your culture and like a different part of your identity.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You want to introduce yourself in Japanese?
Sure. こんにちは、シェルビーです。アメリカから来ました。よろしくお願いします。
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
ありがとうございます。Okay, thank you for watching so far. How was it? That was interesting. Me personally, I think it's really interesting for me interviewing people like them, like people who have specific backgrounds. Since I'm from Nagoya, which is countryside in Japan, I didn't have much opportunity to talk to people who have various backgrounds, foreign friends, even Japanese people who have experiences living abroad. So if you have any idea to interview like them, people who have specific background related to Japan, like Japanese Brazilian, Japanese people raised outside Japan, please let me know. Please leave the comments. Okay, anyway, thank you for watching. If you like this video, click like button. Please subscribe to my channel. See you next time.